All right, quick little update here. I'm putting at the top of this podcast the day after I initially recorded it to wish every single woman out there an happy International Women's Day. What you do for our society, what you do for all of us, all the strong, confident, hardworking women out there, you are not forgotten. We are very appreciative in our society of you, and we do care, and thank you for all that you do. Now, I do want to also mention real quick that I do have I'm going to have a bonus episode a little later this week, maybe tomorrow or Friday, discussing something else I wanted to talk about that didn't quite make the edit of this pod. I had literally just found out about what I wanted to talk about this, what I want to talk about in the bonus episode, literally like an hour and a half after I recorded the podcast, this episode that you're about to hear. So we may do a bonus episode talking about that, just real quick. It won't be very long. But it will reinforce what I'm talking about in terms of mental health. You'll possibly hear that. Just stay with me just follow TJT Podcast on social media. I'll update you as to whether or not that will be coming. But in the meantime, enjoy, or please let me know what you think of what you're about to hear in this podcast, because I would love to hear your thoughts. So without further ado, here's the podcast for this week. Hi, my name is TJ Temple, and welcome to my podcast. All right. First of all, before we dive into my topic today, I do want to say thank you to everyone who has listened to this podcast so far. I know we're only 3 episodes in. I think it's our 3rd episode. It's been a long week, but I do want to thank all of you that have listened, who have reached out, who have supported me through this podcast, or supported me in this podcast adventure that I'm taking. I sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I'm truly, truly grateful for all the kind words and the kind comments I've gotten on this podcast. It like I said, it means the absolute world to me, and that's really why I didn't start this podcast to get compliments, though. I started this podcast to help somebody else out, somebody else who's struggling like me, or, just to share my thoughts on things, because I have a voice and I'm using it. So that's why I started this podcast. But also, before we dive into this week's topic, I want to clear up a misconception that some of you might have. In the first episode, I talked about my hometown and where I grew up and where I still reside. Let me just say that I don't hate my hometown. I just want to, I don't know if anybody else thought that way, but I just want to make it a clear point that I don't hate my hometown. In fact, I'm very proud of where I live. I'm very proud of where I came from. It's made me realize and look in the mirror that I could be a better person and that I'm becoming one. It's just that my hometown is still very rooted in the past. There are a lot of great people in this town, in my hometown. I'm not going to deny that. I have a lot of great friends who either still live here or still live in the area. I'm not going to discount the people that live in my hometown as bad people. Not all of them are bad. Some of them can be, but those are the people I don't associate myself with. So I just wanted to get that off my chest before we start. I don't hate my hometown, and hate is a strong word. I don't like using that word because I don't really hate anything or anybody, but it is true that some people use that word a lot, and it's going to kind of tie into today's topic. But again, I don't hate my hometown. I just want to make that misconception very clear before we get too far into today's episode. So this week, I originally wanted to talk about March Madness, which is starting next week. It's one of the biggest sporting events of the year. It's the NCAA men's basketball tournament. It's the college basketball tournament. I wanted to do an episode on that, but I decided I'm going to push it to next week because it's a lot closer to the tournament. So we're going to just pull a little switcheroo, and we're going to do that next week. What I'm going to talk about this week is I'm going to just start this week's topic with a question. Is the media really that politically driven? And what I mean by that is, are there political agendas in the media? And the answer to that question, I think, is it depends on where you look. I wouldn't say I'm a media junkie. I listen to all sides of the argument, to any side and all sides of any argument, really. But I don't think, like, in terms of your local media, like your local news, your local newspaper, they don't have a political agenda. Like, I'm talking like your local television stations and their news department. Like here, I go on the comments of the local station one of the local stations we have here, that being, of course, KDKA TV in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I see comments about how KDKA is liberal and how KDKA is biased. That's not true. Okay, KDKA does not have a political slant. They cover the news in our community with no bias. It's community journalism, and that's what local media should be all about. It should be telling local stories and talking about the community as a whole. Now, in terms of the national media, specifically cable outlets, I'm talking like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. Yeah, they might have a bit of a political slant to them. Specifically, CNN and MSNBC, they lean more towards a democratic part of our society. But Fox News, of course, Newsmax, America, One America News Network, those, of course, they lean right. They lean conservative. It's really all about how you look at things, too. That's also a part of this as well. It's not just how the media is viewed by other media members, but it's how you look at the media based on your political views. Like I have said many times, I'm an independent. I don't believe in our two-party system. I think it's broken. But as I also said, I listen to all sides. And all sides are what we have. You know, we have the political differences we have in our country that's dividing us even more. But let's go back to talking about the networks: ABC, CBS, NBC. I also hear the bias, or they say, "Oh, CBS is liberal bias." I'm going to get to social media in a minute. Don't you worry. I'm going to talk about how social media is is toxic too. I'll get there. Just hang in there for a second. But in terms of the network media, in terms of ABC, CBS, NBC, they too are not biased. Maybe they have a little bit of a political slant, but it's not even that noticeable, especially to independents like me. There's not really that much of a political slant. It's only, right-wing Trumpers who see a political slant in the network media, in terms of ABC, CBS, and NBC. Like I said, the cable outlets are a different animal. The cable networks, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, those are completely different animals. That's apples. We're comparing apples and oranges here, between the cable networks and the big three television networks, over-the-air television networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. Apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. Now, as I said, social media, that too is a different animal. Social media, there's good and there's bad to social media. The good part of social media is we can connect with other people in ways that we haven't done before. Like when I was younger, we had to go outside. We talked to people at the mall or whatever. But on social media, all you see nowadays is political. You could see political agendas depending on who you're friends with on Facebook. You see it with family. I see it with my own family on parts of Facebook. Facebook is a toxic cesspool of misinformation. And that's another thing we need to discuss too, misinformation, what's fact and what's not fact. And we'll get to that too. But social media is a cesspool, a toxic cesspool of misinformation and conspiracy theories. And you can't tell me otherwise. Yes, there are great things on social media. You can talk to people, you can meet new people, you can pretty much do a lot of good things on social media. But again, the bad to it is where you get your information matters, and what's fact versus not fact, what's fact versus fiction, that also matters. So that's also very important, which I'm going to discuss momentarily. So what's fact versus what's fiction? That's two separate things. And like I said, like I've been saying this entire podcast, where you get your news and where you get your information matters. Okay? If you get your information from the networks, you're getting trusted, reliable, accurate information. Same thing with the local media. If you're getting news from local media, you're getting trusted, reliable, accurate information with no political slant, no political agenda. That's what local media is. And that's why I really made this podcast, to talk about local media and why it does not have a political slant. It's never had a political slant, and it never will. Local media talks about community journalism, or does community journalism. They're in the communities they serve, whether that's through radio, through print, which is not doing well in 2023. It's a dying industry, and maybe television will be soon the way of the dodo bird. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully local television continues to thrive, specifically local TV news. Like I said, I'm not a media junkie, but I follow media enough to know what's truth and what isn't. And what you see on social media, specifically Facebook and even TikTok, is sometimes not true. And most of it is not true on social media, depending on your news source, where you get your news. Be sure to get it from a verified source. The networks, like I said, that is factual that's a fact-based news operation. Same with your local news, whether that's local television, local newspapers, the radio, whatever. That's also important. That's also fact-based, fact-driven news. Fox News can really go either way. Some of what they say is true, but others, especially if you watch their television side, if you watch the TV side, not all of what you hear from Tucker Carlson is true. I honestly think Tucker Carlson's a moron. He is a right-wing Trumper who pushes conspiracy theories. Most of the people on Fox News are. Fox News is not news, okay? Especially on television. Fox News is not news. Fox News has quickly become a conspiracy theory network, has quickly become a place full of misinformation, which is why it's not good to have a network like that in our democracy. They could be even considered a threat to democracy. And I do want to bring your attention to something back in 2017. This was a few years back when Sinclair Broadcast Group, the then largest owner of local television stations, pushed Trump's political agenda onto their local TV stations. That was dangerous then. It would be dangerous now. They don't do it now, thankfully. They have stopped that. They injected these must-run segments into their broadcast, and they even forced their local anchors to write a script, or to read a script, about the dangers of social media and how one-sided news stories play our society. And what's dangerous to our democracy is that misinformation, what's fact and what's fiction, conspiracy theories. That's in terms of what happened in 2020 with the election. Most of that is BS. What you hear on that is BS that comes from Fox News or any political, or Fox News or any right-wing conservative outlet. Most of it, almost all of it, is not true. And that's why I continue to bring the point home that where you get your news matters more than anything. And that's why I wanted to bring this topic up this week. We're going to talk plenty about March Madness next week in terms of how it brings us together. But I really wanted to talk about this topic this week because it is important, and misinformation and calling news outlets liberal or whatever is not good for our society and our democracy, really. So that'll do it for me this week on I've Got Something to Say, and clearly I had a lot to say because we're going on 15 minutes, so I had a lot to say this week. Like I said, next week we're going to talk about March Madness, the NCAA men's basketball tournament, but I'm not going to talk about it in the conventional sense. I'm going to talk about why it's another great example of how sports brings us together. Sports bring us together, and it does. This event is one of the best sporting events of the entire year, and it's a reason why sports bring us together. And it is, and it does bring us together. It really does. So I thank you for listening again. If you have thoughts about what I just said here, leave a voice message. It's in every podcast description. A link to it is in every podcast description. You can email me, tjtpodcast, PODCASTS, @gmail.com. Or you can reach out on social media, Facebook and Twitter. TJT Podcast, and I know I just was talking about social media, just as Dr. Phil would say what you got to say, and then get the hell off. But I appreciate you listening, and as always, like I said, thank you very much for the support that I have gotten on this podcast. Again, like I said, I truly appreciate it. If you have any feedback, please email me, send it my way, or, like I said, voice message. If we get enough comments, I'll do a feedback episode, and I'll break down the comments and what you send me. So hopefully we can do that soon. In the meantime, take care, and I'll talk to you guys next time.